morning, I'm like, they got to hear this guy. I don't know why. I just woke up like, I don't know what's coming up on this stage here pretty soon, but I feel like it's big. And then I ran into this beautiful family with kids with the most awesome names I've ever heard, the most gorgeous wife, this energy, and this man. And Nate did that thing. Do you ever get that thing where it's like, oh boy. I have a feeling that the Incredibles don't got nothing on the Awesomes. And I want you to slow clap. Because I feel like whatever is about to come through this man into all of you is going to change us all. And I'm not trying to stack pressure. I just got that thing. And I'm just doing what God says, what Nate tells me. So give me the slow clap of all slow claps. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Dr. Awesome!
Life without fear. Life without fear. Once upon a time, there was a little boy, and he lived in a state of perpetual fear. You see, if you asked this little boy what his first memory was, he'd share with you that his first memory was when he was 3 years old. And he saw his mom at the front door and his dad on the porch, and they were both crying. They were kissing each other goodbye, and that door shut. And that little boy didn't understand what was going on, but they were getting divorced. But he could feel their broken hearts. And I could still feel it now. It woke me up this morning at 3 a.m. I felt that brokenheartedness. And maybe in a room this size, it's a high probability that some of you have lived through that tragedy of divorce, maybe as a little boy like I was, or as an adult. And I have a message for you. That's that only God knows the depths of the pain that you feel, and He wants to heal your wounded heart. The result of that division was that little boy, they struggled. Their family lived in poverty. My mom did the best that she could. She was raising 5 little kids and mourning the loss of 2. But I grew up in a fatherless household, and it was a struggle. And I clung to sports as an outlet. I fell in love with baseball. I loved the smell of a mitt after you oiled it and then wrapped it in a rubber band and left it out overnight. I love the feel of the stitches of a baseball. I just touched them over and over again. The sound of a crack of a bat when you knew it was a stand-up double. I love baseball. Baseball was life. And as I grew up and I loved to play baseball. And one Saturday morning was just like any Saturday morning. I was with some friends at a baseball diamond. My friend was on the mound. My other friend was in the batter's box. And they said, "Landon, you go catch." And I got behind home plate. And my friend threw a fastball, and my other friend swung for the fence, and the ball came straight back. And I only had time to turn my head just enough. And the ball hit me right in the side of the face. And I was a tough kid, so I shook it off. The truth is, I didn't want to get grounded for doing something so foolish because I wasn't wearing any protective gear, and I hid it from my mom. But over time, I started to develop headaches, And I went to my mom, and she did what any mom would do in the 90s. She gave me an aspirin to kill the pain. Interestingly enough, we don't give any kids aspirin anymore because of Ray's syndrome. But she gave me the painkiller. The headaches kept coming back, and they kept coming back. And then one day we noticed this weakness in the lower left side of my face, and we raced off to the doctor. And the doctor ran all their tests, MRIs and nerve tests. And they said, you have a facial paralysis, and most of those come back on their own. Here's a medication for the headaches and the face pain that you're having. And I went home, and I took that medication. And unfortunately, my body reacted to that medication to where the headaches got worse. I started to wake up with rebound headaches to where I couldn't breathe in the morning. I screamed as loud as I could. I can still hear my mom's voice as she said, Landon, what's wrong? What's going on? And I was doubled over in pain, and it's the kind of pain that you feel when the dentist hits a bad tooth with that air, and it shoots through your face and then out your eyeball like a knife, and you just want to crawl up and make it go away, and it wouldn't stop. So we went back to the doctor, and they said, here's another drug to try. And they were trying to help, but they didn't have a solution for me. They said, most of these paralysis get better. We don't know why yours isn't. But here's another drug to take. And so that was my life. And that's a period in my life that I refer to now as the dark room. The pain didn't get better. They just doped me up. I was taking pills and I was not myself. And what was worse is the paralysis got worse and the emotional pain and the trauma that happened as a result of that, because I don't know if you know any 12 or 13-year-old boys, but they're not the nicest. When you look different and you smile different. And I learned early on that the best thing I could do to stop the bullying was to look at the biggest one and just knock him out. And that was a solution, but it didn't solve anything. I started to push love away. I pushed my family away. The truth is that I was so angry at what happened to me and that my face wasn't working. I was so angry about all of the things that have happened in my life and that I couldn't get better. And if the doctor said I couldn't get better, how could I get better as a 14, 15-year-old kid? And it got so dark because that dark room was the only thing that seemed to give me any relief when you're wanting to vomit because pain is so bad and you're so recluse that you want to push away love because you're afraid you're going to get hurt again. And I stayed in that dark room and it got darker and darker and there was just a speck of light in that room and it almost went out. And I was so close to taking God's greatest gift, my own life. But thanks be to God, He saw me through that before I even knew Him. One day when I was 16, my friend said, you ought to go see my doctor. He's different. I think he can help you. I said, no, I don't go to doctors anymore. I have doctoritis. It's an inflammation of the doctor's office. You can laugh at my jokes. They're very funny. And reluctantly I went, and I walked in, and the healing started when I walked in the door. The person came around, and they greeted me, and they said, you must be Landon. We've been expecting you. I can't wait till you meet my doctor. I really think he's going to be able to help you. I had never experienced that in a doctor's office in my life. I was used to this very fancy contraption. You might have heard of it. It's called the go to hell window, where they open it and ask you for your insurance and your ID card, and then they slam it shut and say, go to hell. Then I walked back and I met this doctor. And for the first time in a doctor's office, I felt like someone actually listened to me. He listened to my whole story, everything that I had been through, and he wasn't in a rush. And then he started to tell me that my body was the most amazing thing ever created, that the central nervous system controls and coordinates all function in the body. And I didn't have disease, I had dis-ease, and he hyphenated the word. He said, all we have to do is remove the structural, chemical, and emotional interferences that are impacting your body's innate ability to heal. He said, have you ever had a paper cut? He said, when you got a paper cut, did you have to tell your body what to do for it to heal? Absolutely not, I said. And he said, Well, what if you kept interfering with the process and opening it up and making that cut bigger and sore and stored with toxins? We know if we tell a plant angry thoughts, it doesn't grow. When we tell it happy thoughts, it does. We got to remove the interference, and they're called subluxations. I said, what? And it didn't cost $1 million, and it was non-invasive, so I signed up for care. For the first time in my life, I walked out of a doctor's office with hope, real hope. And when I came back at the second visit, he said, Landon, I don't know if I can fix your Bell's palsy. I don't know even if your headaches are going to get better, but I do know one thing, and that is your life will be better as a patient in my office. At that point, I was having about 1 migraine a week, the kind where you're in the dark room and you don't want to get out. After a month, the next month I had 1 migraine. The next month I had 0, and I got off all the drugs. That chiropractor saved my life. This is me right before the accident. This is me right after. You can see that lower part of my lip, it just stopped moving just so much. Some things don't change though. Check this out. Still have amazing hair. This is me a couple of years later. I stopped smiling for pictures. On one visit, that chiropractor took me in his office, and he took me in front of a mirror, and he did this muscle test, and he had me smile at myself. And he used this technique called the neuromotional technique, which I thought was total voodoo, but it's grounded in hard science, and it's developed by a chiropractor. It's the best thing we have on the biopsychosocial model of health. If you haven't heard of it, look at it, because send your patients for it. And he said a bunch of emotions while I was smiling at myself. My arm weakened every time, and then he said this one emotion, I don't remember what it was, but I started to bawl. I cried my eyes out. I think I cried for the first time that I had cried since that accident. I let it all out in that room. I had no idea what was going on. It was a total supernatural experience, and he was tapping and adjusting my spine. And then he said, look at yourself again, and I smiled, and I was strong. I couldn't talk to my family, let alone get in front of a room like this until that happened. It completely set me free of that psychosomatic subluxation I had had from being teased and bullied as a kid. I'm going to say I a bunch when I'm up here, and it's of the utmost importance that you understand that when I say I did this or I did that, it wasn't I who did anything, it was God who did everything. I am nothing without God. The only goodness that comes from me is the Holy Spirit that moves through me. And I would be remiss to be at a conference, if you even call that this, I don't know what it is, it's been amazing and exceptional. I'd be remiss to be at a conference called Life Without Fear, without invoking the name of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, through all good things flow. And if you know him, I'm grateful. And my prayer is that through relationship with one another, we'll see awe and wonder that this world has never seen in our practices, in our life. We'll see miracles upon miracles. And if you don't know him, all I can say is, if you want an introduction, I'm available. I have a best friend named Christ Jesus, and he wants to be your best friend too. And his perfect love casts out all fear. It is the antidote to fear. This is the closest thing I've found to perfect love this side of heaven. This is my family. We're the awesomes. Awesomeness has permeated through our entire life and is part of our family culture. This is Mrs. Awesome. She really likes it when I call her that. And then Sedona Awesome, Sebastian Awesome. I'm pointing down here because I got a screen you guys don't know about. Lazarus Awesome and Tallulah Awesome. And then there's the guy next to Mickey. And he's smiling. I can't. I get in a room like this, looking at you beautiful people, I cannot stop smiling. And without the head and the heart and the hands of a chiropractor, he would not be here. And neither would any of those beautiful, awesome kids. And it'd just be Mrs. Awesome and Mickey. And I've never beat up a mouse, but it's not beneath me, okay? I will admit, you guys ever heard of Cal Jam? Cal Jam's about an hour and a half from my house. And I met Dr. Tim Young at Cal Jam thanks to the courage of Billy DeMoss and everything that he's done for me and for thousands of chiropractors in our profession. I picked this picture because it looks like Tim's about to sock somebody. It's pretty funny. I will admit it's probably easier for me to come to Oklahoma. Let's see, faith, family, freedom, focus. That's a lot of F words. That's a campfire I want to be at, right? But I'm telling you, if you haven't been to Cal Jam, this is a campfire that you're welcome at. You're going to love it there. So come out and see us. I met Dr. Tim Young, and he spoke on stage, and if I summed up his talk in one word, it would have been authenticity. And if I summed it up in a sentence, it would have been a complete and total love of the art of the chiropractic adjustment. And I shared that love. And I looked at my wife and I said, I could follow him. I could listen to him. And she almost passed out. Because I don't listen to anybody. It's one of my gifts. So Tim's up on the terrace, a couple, rooms up, and he's got a line of 50 chiropractors waiting to get adjusted. And he wasn't saying anything. He was doing upper cervical only. He laid them down, and he'd adjust them, and he'd lay them down, and he'd adjust them. And I get up there, and I lay down on his table. He doesn't say anything. And he's doing upper cervical only, and then boom, it was the cleanest, purest, fastest, gentlest adjustment I had ever had in my life. And that's saying something because the chiropractor saved my life. And I said, Dr. Young, I got to be honest, with all due respect, I don't know where Oklahoma is on the map, but when you're teaching technique, I'm there. And my practice skyrocketed when I started to let the adjustment do the talking. I've really enjoyed our time here in Oklahoma, but you all know you have rattlesnakes in your trees. I was standing under a tree and I heard this rattle, and I'm from Southern California. You hear a rattle like that, you jump 3 feet in the other direction, and then I'm like, there's a snake in the tree. So be careful. So when I was writing this talk for y'all, I get the thing. I start saying y'all when I'm around y'all. All y'all. So when I started writing this, I started thinking, when have I been actually in fear in practice? And the truth is, I do get fearful often in my life. I'm not, even Superman has kryptonite, So I started to think, I'm like, okay, 2020, I wasn't afraid of the virus. I was afraid of how I was going to explain to my children that I was in jail because the California Gestapo threw me in jail because I wouldn't stop adjusting people. Okay? Like, how do I explain that to like a 1, a 3, and a 5, and a 7-year-old, And so I get on this call with Dr. Tim Young and all of the Focus family. You guys, who was on that call? Remember that? He's in New Zealand on a bucket list trip with his wife, just me. So I'm on this call with Tim, and on this call, he says, yeah, we're just not going to participate in this. And I'm like, they're shutting the world down. I'm in California. He's like, we're just not going to participate in this. He said, mark my words. A bunch of you are going to have a record year in practice this year. And I'm like, he's crazy. I'm paying a crazy man. But I took that faith that he gave to me that I didn't have. And I went to my team and I said, we're going to have a record year in practice this year. And guess what happened? We did. We had a record record year in practice. We blew away every stat we'd ever had that year in practice. It was unbelievable. I made a joke that one time I took 7 days off because one of our kids was born and our server got hacked. I said, Tim, you take 10 days off and the whole world stops. Like, be careful what you're doing. So, as a chiropractor in practice, we have to wear all these different hats, right? And we have the CEO hat and the marketing hat, and we have the healer hat and the HR hat and all these different hats, right? And it's hard to juggle all these different things. And so what we're going to do right now is we're just going to take this healer hat off and we're going to put it down right over here, okay? Well, that was disappointing. Focus family. If ever you are at a chiropractic event and a speaker on stage says that you're supposed to take your healer hat off, you have no, it is your duty to boo them off the stage. So let's try. Yeah. I'm going to take my healer, wait for me. I'm going to take my healer hat off. This healer hat doesn't come off. This is a vocation. It is the fingerprint of God on your soul. It is tattooed right on your heart. So what are we going to do? Well, we got to fit all these other hats on top of that healer hat. So we're going to put our CEO hat on, right? And the CEO knows this. This is a business life cycle. You guys should all know this chart because you're somewhere in this chart in your business. You're either in startup, let me hear you, or raise your hands. Startup, 5 years or less, okay? Or students, you guys are in this part too. Your growth, 15 to 20 years, right? Where are you guys at? 15 to 20 years? All right, I see those hands, right? And then you're in maturity. This is 15 on into exit, okay? Just remember this chart. Every business has a life cycle, right? We're talking business. I got my 10-gallon healer hat on, and I got this little bitty baby baseball cap, my CEO hat right on top, okay? So the CEO also knows this. You got my water, Laz? The CEO also knows this. This is called a sales cycle. This is attraction, conversion, retention, and upsell. Okay? So attraction is all your marketing, who you are, your brand. Conversion, there's more than one conversion. There's the conversion where they call you. There's the conversion when they come in and sign up for your care plan. Retention is the holy grail of any business. It is easier and more cost-effective to retain a customer or a patient than it is to get a new one. And then there's upsell. The easiest person to sell something to is someone who's already bought something from you. And I love Tim. I was talking about nutrition and if he sells vitamins in a store, and he told me a story about how there was this 300-pound guy in his office, and the guy said, Dr. Young, what do you think I should do? I need to lose some weight. I weigh 300 pounds. And Dr. Young said, I think you should stop eating. And the guy said, no, that's funny. No, really, what should I do? And he said, I think you should stop eating. And I thought, God, I want to be just like Tim when I grow up, But instead, it's never been easier to have a nutrition store online where you can just click a button, hold no inventory, and get people a better product than they can get at Costco or on Amazon. And you might look into that unless you're like Tim and you just tell them exactly how it is. One can aspire. So no matter where you are in that sales, that life cycle of a business, I want to give you 3 things that can help you grow your business and help more people, okay? And we're going to kind of roll through these pretty quick. But number 1 is build a big brand. And then the second one is auto debit is the new PVA. And the last one is acquisitions and building a sellable practice, okay? So build a big brand. It was never in my business plan to wear a cape and call myself Dr. Awesome. I had this patient who was relentless, and she had a miracle in my office. And she said, I can't pronounce your last name. It's French. It's Amonette. I'm just going to call you Dr. Awesome. I said, oh, God, please don't do that. I already have an ego problem. I don't need any help. Plus, I already told my wife that Amonette means love, in French, and that makes me the love doctor, so I'm good with that. She said, no, you're Dr. Awesome. So as a gag, we pulled out like 1,000 cards in Vistaprint and put them out on the thing. They were gone in 3 days. And I said, oh, better live it. Interestingly enough, when I started getting well from that chiropractor, people would ask me how I was, and I'd say, I'm awesome, 17 years old. It was an affirmation, and it was becoming the truth. I told myself I was even before I was. So we built a big brand, and we started winning these awards. Why? Because we helped people, and we loved them. We loved them up, and we served them. I learned to serve better than ever by Dr. Tim Young's guidance and needing a coach. And so when you win an award, if you ever do, I recommend you do, and you get your team and community rallied around that award, and then you got to let everybody know you won. So we put it on billboards. This billboard right here, 475,000 people a week would see that billboard. We did it all over town. This is me, and I took my Cybertruck and I polished it so it matched my shoes. And I write these little children's books, and they're chiropractic themed, and they talk about little miracles that happen in the office through chiropractic, and they teach chiropractic technique, and they're all interwoven into the story. And it's not about me, it's about the parents, right? And how good they are, and how they brought their kid, and then their kid had a miracle. And I drive around, and I give them to kids and tell them they're awesome. It's fantastic. You could do that too, Chiro Tales. This is my town. I could say it's my town because I own it. That's the triangle of awesomeness right there. Pretty soon it'll be an octagon of awesomeness, and then I'll be in the middle with a big belt because I'm the winner, the double champ. What we did is we made awesome and chiropractic synonymous with each other. It's Pavlovian. You ring the bell, you give the dog a treat. Ring the bell, give the dog a treat. Ring the bell, they start drooling. Awesome, chiropractic. Awesome, chiropractic. Awesome, chiropractic. They start drooling. They do it. I've seen them do it on the table. It's on the headrest paper. Drooling. Then you have to have a team, and you have to serve that team. And you have to have associates in your practice if you're going to get over a certain volume. And in my experience, the best thing you could do for an associate is to lead them and then make them a star. So I'm in this transition right now where I'm 15 Mile famous, but I want to be a producer of stars. Because if I'm a producer of stars, then I can impact more people in my community, right? Because no chiropractor woke up when they were 7 years old and said, Dad, I want to be Robin, not Batman, right? They want to be Batman or Superman or Superwoman. They are a star. That's why that's why you became a chiropractor. You are a star, right? If they wanted to be Robin, they would have become a PA. Let's be serious. No offense to the PAs. I got a friend who's a PA. They're really good at being Robin, you know? All right. Auto debit is the new PVA. Auto debit is the new PVA. Do everything that Tim teaches you. Do your care plans. Then have an auto debit feature at the end for your wellness care, and I'll tell you why. And it'll be easy to convince you after like 2 slides. These are base camps. Your practice is supposed to grow. It is a living, breathing entity. It is supposed to grow. It's made to grow. If you get stuck at one of these base camps for more than 6 months, something's wrong and you have to change something. So often it's addition by subtraction. One base camp, I was working 5 days a week. I went down to 4 days a week. We skyrocketed into the next base camp. Made no sense. I'm like, whatever. Another base camp, we had to move who was answering the phone at the front desk to the back office because the phone was ringing so often it was interfering with the flow of patient care, right? So if you're stuck at a certain volume, you need to change. And that can be scary, but keep changing until you blow up into that next base camp. Here's why PVA is a trash stat. It's really bad, stupid math, okay? Like, look, I have a PVA of 500. I had 500 monthly visits and 1 new patient. Oh no, I have a PVA of 5. I had 500 monthly visits and 100 new patients. Which practice is better off? PVA is stupid math. Stop doing PVA. Top line gross revenue, auto debit recurring month over month, increase. That's what you want to see, okay? Don't worry about PVA. Oh, this is my actual stats. Look at October. Oh no, my PVA went down. What happened? We polished the Cybertruck in the driveway of one of my practices. Took 4 days, 10 hours a day. Karen called the sheriff. Sheriff comes over. What are you doing? We're polishing the Cybertruck. Sheriff's like, oh, okay. comes in and gets adjusted, right? Karen wanted us to get arrested for polishing the Cybertruck in the driveway. Then, that was in September. In October, we usually have 90 new patients a month. In October, we had 158 new patients that month. Bananas. That doesn't mean go polish a Cybertruck, but figure out, like, PVA is a trash stack. Okay. Having an auto debit practice portion as a part of your practice is really important. And the path to $1 million a year, we talk about this in chiropractic, having $1 million practice. I'll tell you right now, your target is too low. It needs to be higher because there are sick people that need to get well. Because if you look at, are there 1,500 people in your town or the next town over that need chiropractic care and will pay you $60 a month to get it? Yes or yes? Are there 800 patients in your town or the next town over that will pay you $110 a month to get adjusted? Yes or yes? Right? Yes, right? Then you get down into these bigger numbers. Think about your gross revenue, and then imagine if with one swipe of a pen, you can add 10% of your annual gross revenue to your top line next year. That's what we did. We started contracting with companies because there is an insurance intermediary that takes a bunch of chiropractic claims, and last year it made $728 million. And I'm convinced that a large portion of their revenue came from denying claims that chiropractors submitted where the people really genuinely needed that care. Part of our success, I think, is that I never looked at chiropractors as my competition. I look at them as my competition. And there's plenty of money where I can contract with companies and basically boot them out of the process with a wellness care program. When we wrote the contract for this one company that had 1,400 employees, we explicitly wrote inside it that they needed no pre-existing conditions and they could be adjusted for subluxations of the spine to remove interference from their brain to their body, and it's in the contract. Amen? There is a company or several companies in your town that wants to pay you these monthly fees to take care of their employees. They are some of the best patients. The patients love it, and you'll end up making a good amount of income on an annual recurring basis. The reason you want an auto debit practice, as an auto debit system as a part of your practice, is that when you do sell your practice, or you can turn it over to your children, right? But most people sell their practice, and as the owner of Chirocom, which sends out a magazine every month and has for 30 years to 10,000 chiropractors in California, every month I get a call from a chiropractor who's in his 60s or 70s who's like, I got to sell my practice. I don't know what to do. I don't have anybody, and the practice has gone down. When you sell your practice and it has monthly recurring revenue, these companies will pay you a 5 to 7 times multiple. We are in a pivotal point in chiropractic business, and we went from the individual practice to the group practice to the franchise practice to the corporate practice, and we are quickly entering into the private equity acquisition of practices, where if you have a great practice, imagine if you sold your practice when it's at its peak and then contracted to stay on and adjust everybody you love for a premium, and you didn't have to worry about any of the nuts and bolts of actually running the practice. The last thing I want you to think about is the ability to acquire practices near you. You young doctors, you are in a great position because there are chiropractors that are sunsetting and they're going through and they want to turn over their practice, but they're told that the schools don't teach chiropractic. And that's true. A lot of them don't, but there are some coming out who are in a position to go and philosophically align with these chiropractors who've been doing what they love for 40 years, and all they want is their patients to be loved and taken care of and adjusted. These are the years that I ended up acquiring practices, and that's when I started Focus. This is an income line. I won't go over the actual numbers, but you can see I didn't double my practice when I joined Focus. We quadrupled it. maybe triple, I don't know. It was really good. What we ended up doing is we honored the doctors, we acquired their patient base, we loved and took care of them, and then they retired. And we've done this 7 times in 13 years. I'll teach you how to do it. If you can find, I just helped a chiropractor, and he doubled his practice volume by making an acquisition. Everybody wins. This is when I think you should try and look at selling your practice. Too often, chiropractors, they wait till it's here. And some of these stories, they'll rip your guts out listening to them. You just want to help these people so much, but they don't have anything saleable. What was that? I broke the stage. So it's not all roses. I mean, that's like a highlight reel of what can be done and what we did. And it reminds me of the story of the bricklayers being in chiropractic practice. You guys know the story of the bricklayers? Well, good, because I'm going to tell you. There's a man, and he's visiting a town, and he's walking down Main Street, and he sees some people laying brick. There's 3 of them. And he walks up to the first one, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the man says, "What does it look like I'm doing? I'm laying bricks." He's like, "Got it." Keeps walking. He walks to the next man, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He looks up, and he says, "I'm making a living to feed my family." He says, "Oh, good." And he walks up to the next one. He says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the man stops what he's doing. He stands up and he squares himself up, puts his chin up, and with tears welling up in his eyes and starting to roll down his face, he says, "I'm building a house for the living God." Because he was building a cathedral. And our work is no different. And I'll tell you for certain, I have been each one of those bricklayers in practice. Like, okay, one more, T5 on the right, T5 on the right. Like, okay, one more, soccer practice, rent, electricity. And then there are the times when I've had the patient on the table and I've had that pure intention, and the Spirit of God in me moved through me and through my hands, and it recognized God in them, and I adjusted them in the tabernacle that they are. This is what it's all for. This is Kurt. 35 years, Kurt had irretractable migraines 3 to 4 times a week. He runs mission trips in India and countries where they don't know the good news, and they bring hundreds of thousands of people to Christ. And he was having trouble doing it because his migraines were so bad, even on his drugs. He's been in our practice for 3 months. 2 weeks ago, he got off all of his medications, and he's going to India in 2 weeks, I think. Cathedral. This is Karen. When Karen came into our office, she could barely walk. Someone helped her to the exam room. This is her spine, and her neck and her lower back is completely fused. She would say things like, "I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can do this anymore." After her first adjustment, she came back and says, "I'm feeling a little bit better. Do you think that I could actually get better?" I said, "Your body is the most awesome thing ever created. All we need to do is remove the interference. And I don't know if you'll get well, but I do know that your life will be better as a patient in my office." Last week, she told me she walked a mile. When I ask Karen now how she's doing, guess what she says? "I'm awesome." She couldn't turn over on the table by herself. Her friend went to help her. After the third eye adjustment, I said, "No, don't do it. Let her do it." She did it. She was so proud. She just needed permission to let her body do the healing. This is Shelby. Shelby and her husband were young and newly married, and they were having trouble getting pregnant. And she came into our office from a friend's recommendation. I started adjusting her. And as I was adjusting her, we were into month 14 of her care plan, and she never missed a week. And I said, "Shelby, I'm so glad that you're committed to your chiropractic care, and I just want you to know every time I lay my hands on you, I'm praying that God will move through me to remove any interference that is stopping you and your husband from getting pregnant. I just need you to know that." She started to cry. The next week she came in and she said, "Dr. A, my husband and I talked, and we're going to stop doing all the fertility stuff and all the appointments they have us doing. I just want to do chiropractic." 9 months later, she was pregnant with her first daughter, and it's that little girl right there. They got pregnant right away after that, and they had their second child. She hasn't been in a while. I think it's because they're like trying to space their kids out, you know. Cathedral. About that dark room, you know, my life, it didn't end in that dark room, thanks be to God. It didn't start there either. My parents, they were born in the 70s, and 19 and 22 years old, they started a family right away. My sister Amy was born, and then Jenny was born about a year later. And then they conceived my brother Daniel. And Daniel, he passed away at 23 weeks. And through the grief, my parents conceived again, and Mary, she was stillborn. She had a nuchal cord around her neck 3 times. Mary and Daniel are my brother and my sister, and I never met them, but I know them, and I know they love me. And my mom fell into this deep depression, as you can imagine. And she said, "Landon, I had a dream, and a man came to me in a dream, and he said, 'Everything is going to be okay.' And then she said, 'Landon, 9 months later, you were born. You're a healer. You healed me before you were ever born.'" And that was a story my mother used to tell me on and around my birthday every year, almost every year. So when I was little and you'd ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I want to be a canine cop because they're cool and they have dogs and they bite people. And she would remind me, "Landon, you're a healer. You healed me before you were ever born." And there's someone in this room who knows that they're a healer. And the beat of that drum is the rhythm of their life. They know they're a healer. And I have a message for you. There's someone else in this room who knew they were a healer, but life has a way of kicking you in the teeth. You ever been kicked in the teeth by life? And they started to forget that they were a healer. And I have a message for you. And there's someone in this room that's never been told they're a healer. Maybe it's you. And I have a message for you. You are a healer. You have been anointed and appointed. You heal every room you walk in. When Jesus ascended into heaven, before he did, he breathed on the disciples, and he left the Holy Spirit with them. And they walked through crowds, and their shadows healed people. Their shadows healed people. And that same power that dwelled in them can dwell in you. And God does the healing. You show up. You walk in the room as if your shadow can heal people. And then they walk and they lay down on your table. Thank you.